Why does the size of your camera sensor matter so much? In this video, we'll be exploring the idea of equivalence and where full frame aps-c kind of meet and what equivalent an aps-c lens or ISO or whatever it is would be on a full frame camera. So kind of to start out, full frame allows you to capture more light than aps-c. Medium format, obviously much more than full frame, depending of course on the size of the medium format, and then large format, more than medium, more than full frame. So between micro four thirds and full frame, you're getting 4 times as much light in the full frame as you are in the micro four thirds. You're getting 1.5 times more light on a full frame sensor than you will ever on an aps-c sensor. And so when you are using your ISO, that ISO is like standard. It represents a certain amount of light always that you'll be able to capture. So ISO 800 should be ISO 800 on everything. So when you're trying to get ISO 800, you're trying to get a certain amount of light represented by the sensor electronically. When you're trying to do that same thing on an aps-c sensor, you're actually closer to 1250 because of the fact that you have to multiply that 800 by 1.5 to get the noise that you're going to be getting. So aps-c ISO 800 equals noise 1250 for full frame, whereas full frame 800 is 800. Moving forward kind of with this idea of equivalence, you're going to have different apertures and different shutter speed, all this to get the exposure that you want. So if you want, an f1.2 depth of field on a micro four thirds camera, you're going to need an aperture of f2.8 because of the equivalence. You got to multiply it by 2. So a micro four thirds sensor is a 2x crop of a full frame sensor. And so 1.2 times 2 stops, if you will, gets you to 2.8. The reason that this is important is because cameras like Fujifilm's recent GFX 50S medium format, I think it's 44 by 33 sensor, doesn't actually allow you to take advantage of medium format because all of the lenses that have been released for it have too slow of apertures to make a difference. So you can get on an A7R2 or on a Nikon D810 or on a Canon 5D Mark IV, you can get the same quality of image based on noise in ISO, based on aperture, all this because of the fact that that sensor, despite being larger, despite being able to capture more light, does not actually have the lenses to take advantage of that. So you can get better image quality out of a full frame lens. So take a 50mm for example. You can get a Sigma f1.4. f1.4 is kind of pervasive across the market now, and Sigma's done a great job of making that happen. But in doing so, they've also kind of mitigated the value of that smaller medium format sensor because f1.4 on a full frame is worth more than f2.8 on medium format. So you're going to need an f1.8 lens on a medium format camera in order to take advantage of all the extra sensor that it's giving you by comparison to full frame. The other really key part of this whole image quality thing is the lenses. Before I bounce away, that's why t-stops are increasingly important to me instead of f-stops, because an f-stop is the relative aperture opening that can determine things like bokeh. However, a t-stop is an objective measurement of the amount of light that can physically pass through a lens, and that t-stop means more because it can indicate that a lens can allow more light through it less light than its aperture would suggest, or whatever the case might be. Typically, it's by how much less light you can fit through that lens in relation to its aperture, f-stop number. So my 85mm f1.8 from Canon has an f-stop of f1.8, but has a t-stop of t2.1. And what that means is it's actually transmitting less light than the aperture would suggest. So yeah, smash that like button, leave a comment. I'd love to have more of this conversation with you in the comment section. Don't hesitate to subscribe, please, if I've provided value to anyone. And please, please, please check out my Patreon page. Giving me a couple of bucks a month, being able to help me, pursue this dream of creating content and doing what I'm passionate about means the world to me. And so I really appreciate those of you who will choose to donate in particular, and I really hope that you do. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I'll see you in the next one. With you, with you, with you, get back.